Hello there, morbid maniacs. It's time for another spooky video. I cannot tell you guys how excited and how happy I am to be back filming for you all. I always have to take a break from Vlogtober because as much as I love it, it is very draining and tiring. So I always have to take a break after that, but I am officially back in front of my old setup, in front of Larry here. And tonight's video is going to be a creepypasta, which I created myself, known as the Abominable Snowman. Also, if you hear like purring or like any other sounds, baby kitty is in the room with me. He wanted to be a part of the videos, I guess, so just try to ignore that. It was a cold, snowy evening in that small little town. The sun was setting behind the clouds, and it was beginning to get dark out. Daylight savings time. Oh, you're such a cutie. Are you gonna be a YouTube star? Huh? My family had just came inside after playing in the snow. It had been snowing ever since I woke up that morning. Every year, when we get a big snowfall, we would go out and make a giant snowman. We would usually place it under the big tree which sat in front of our home, and you could see it from the window in the living room. We placed a top hat on it, some sticks for arms, a scarf around its neck, and twigs and buttons for its face. My uncle threw some logs into the fireplace as we all snuggled up in our jammies and drank hot cocoa. The curtains were still open, and in the distance I could see the snowman sitting there, its face pointed in our direction. The snow was still coming down heavily, and it was around 5 p.m. when the power had went out. Thankfully, we had our fireplace and hot cocoa to keep us warm for a while. I peered out the window. Something about the snowman was different, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. An hour or two had gone by, and the power still had not come back on. They believed it to be a big tree which had fell on the line from the heaviness of the snow. They weren't sure when it would be restored for us. My family lit some candles. Bored and with nothing else to do, I walked over to the window a second time. In the distance, I could see the snowman, the streetlight glimmering on its surface, but something about it was off. It looked like it had gotten closer. I didn't know whether it was the hot cocoa or if I was just tired from the long day I had, so I shrugged it off and I sat back down. My family began to tell each other stories to pass the time. It would be 30 minutes in that we would be interrupted by a loud thunk on the side of our home. A little startled, we slowly walked over to the window and peeked out. At first thought, we thought it was an icicle which had hit the side of our house, but when we peeked out the window, we were shocked to see the snowman we had built earlier in the day right outside of. Freaking out, we quickly threw the curtains back and tried to make sense of it, but we could not come up with a rational explanation. The snowman was all the way on the other side of the yard. It's not like it got up on its own and walked over to the window. A few minutes later, we would hear another loud thunk. All of us were too afraid to go see what it was this time, so we played eeny, miny, moe, and of course, it had to be me that lost. I slowly got up and walked over to the window, carefully pulling back the curtain. But when I looked, the snowman was gone. It had completely disappeared from our yard and in front of our house. The street light was still gleaming on our driveway, the snow sparkling in its light. The yard was empty except for the big tree which was casting shadows onto the curtains in our window. I sat back down, freaking out, my family blowing out our candles and locking our doors. It was now pitch black in our house, other than the light from the fireplace, and silent except for the rustling of the wood. We all hovered on the floor as we could hear movement just outside the window. Reflecting into the room, we could see the silhouette of the snowman we had created, creeping past, the leaves on the trees blowing behind him. We all sat quietly, shaking and unknowing of what would happen next. Once he got to the center of our window, he had came to a dead stop. It was then that the branches we had used for its arms were extended and began scratching on the glass. I was only 10 at the time and had no idea what was going on. I thought I was having a nightmare. The snowman began pecking on the glass harder and harder with its wooden arm. All the while, we curled under our blankets and watched in horror. It was making nicks in our window. Before we knew it, the branch of its arm broke through the glass, and it was at this exact moment that our power had been restored. The branch fell along with the snowman it was embedded in. My uncle grabbed his shotgun and decided to brave it out. He walked outside, and next to the window, there was no snowman in sight. However, under the big tree in our driveway, there it was, sitting pretty as you please. It looked as though it had not moved an inch. My uncle, confused but also still shaken up, took his gun and shot 2 bullets into it, causing it to explode. Its hat, scarf, buttons, twigs, and branches all falling to the ground. He anxiously walked back inside to tell us what happened. We were all shocked and confused. To this day, we still have no idea what happened that cold winter night. I wanted to chalk it up to being my imagination, but I was not the only one who had witnessed it. Everyone in the house that night had seen it and had no explanation for it. I have yet to create another snowman since. So there was my little creepypasta. What do you guys think? I was actually inspired by a story that my mom used to tell me and my sister when we were kids, which I'm pretty sure was just made up so that she could scare us, because we used to tell ghost stories in the dark under candlelight, and it was like so much fun. It's like one of my favorite things from my childhood. But this one I just kind of created and made up myself. Let me know what you guys think, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and become a morbid maniac. Also, be sure to hit that bell notification, that way you get notified every single time I upload a new video. And I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.